the red figurine you see on the screen is actually a 3D printout of me, which I'm hoping to incorporate as a new piece of a board game I'm designing. It was made by scanning myself in with a Kinect camera and with a 3D printer. So it's increasingly easy to see that we can make what we imagine. What if the first question you were asked every day at school was, what will you make today? Maybe you start thinking about how you burn your tongue a lot while you're eating, or how it's really hard to walk and talk with your friends in the rain, or how you just want to get to places faster. So you eventually say rocket, and the teacher replies, okay, let's figure out how to make that.
Just close his hands, keep them separate like that.
3, 2, 1.
You can make what you imagine. That's not the typical mantra in education. As a Chinese-born American, excelling academically was never a question mark. I'll preface this with saying that I love my dad and he's absolutely awesome, but every Sunday morning, 6-year-old me would have to stand in front of him and recite 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 3, 2, 6, 4, 2, 8, and so on. Multiplication tables up to 12. When I turned 8, that became reading through encyclopedia entries, starting with A. I only got to F. While memorizing information in regular practice can come in handy, it definitely wasn't my favorite morning activity. And education, as defined as school, although something that was expected, was still a question mark in terms of purpose and self-driven choice. The recent story of another 8-year-old, Kane, stands in some contrast. With his dad's garage tools at his disposal, he built an entire arcade out of cardboard. He had to engineer tickets to dispense, figure out the angles of pins in order to make a game winnable. And the crowds lined up and his tale went viral, partly because it exemplified a common truth, that all kids have that spark of imagination and drive to make that should be ignited. So in backyard conversations over beer, a few co-conspirators and I have been asking ourselves the question, so what would it be like if we created a community space that asked young people, what do you want to make? I opened with a video clip from our passion project. We call it the Makery. Especially in urban centers like New York City, there are no large garages or basements and backyards for young people to experiment and tinker with tools. We wanted to create a youth makerspace situated right on the city sidewalk, where like any storefront, a young person might just stumble upon it and walk in. And cities like New York can also seem intimidatingly expensive. But my advice for your dream designs is just try it, just do it. We started with a series of pop-ups. For our first one, we converted a 2,000 square foot art gallery into a temporary youth makerspace, installing it with 3D printers, soldering equipment, and electronics fabrication material. Then we held our breath. If you build it, will they come? The heart of our makerspace transformation is when the community did start walking in and getting curious. Every day was a new set of problems to solve. On day 1, Sam and Elio, who love Pac-Man, wanted to create silkscreen t-shirts and plastic figurines of the game. This meant first figuring out which 2D and 3D software tools to use, and then how to send their designs to the 3D printer. Everyone loves blinky lights. On day 2, making that light blink meant first mastering the art of soldering a circuit cleanly to create a closed loop. And they found that making that light blink was hard, but it was well worth it. When it finally lit up, that aha moment was much more intuitive than looking at a circuit diagram. On day 3, instead of playing pre-made games, the creative problem to solve was how to design our own systems of cause and effects by making our own digital games, like this one, where when a cat nabs a mouse, it earns health points, means figuring out how to code when X touches Y, Z happens. Then on day 5, there was a happy surprise. I was outside on the sidewalk writing the Makery on our chalkboard sign when a stranger passing by gifted me this set of huge red balloons. So I went inside and said, what should we make with this? 15-year-old Nick then went down the street into a shop, bought a $15 camera, and then using the same circuit that we had soldered on day 2, hacked the camera so that instead of turning the LED light on and off, it now triggered the shutter's camera. So the problem of how to best take advantage of a stranger's gift was solved, and here you can see us trying out our contraption indoors before we took our new aerial photography device outside. By the end, we had kids explaining to adults what 3D printers were, and explaining to each other about circuits, and beginning to understand that technology is not a black box, that someone made it. A 2010 White House report found that not only are young people less prepared to enter STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, there are fewer who are inspired to. So it's old news that there's a gap in the types of skill sets that are crucial to moving our society through our challenges ahead. The new headline should be how the joys of making and making with others hasn't been viewed seriously enough as a really potentially powerful pathway to growing that kind of inventive society. This is a map of adult maker hackerspaces around the world, and you can see there's a lot of them. So a change-making question to ask ourselves is, how can we bring that same kind of decentralized, passion-driven education, community, and culture that's emerging from the adult maker movement to young people, especially young people in urban centers? There is a need to create community-based youth maker spaces that inspire kids to learn by seeing themselves as makers and understanding that they can figure out how to make their ideas into reality. This is an image from our pop-up at Maker Faire in New York City last week, and you can see this grandson explaining to his grandfather the circuit that they're both struggling with for the first time. And I love this second amazing image of joint problem solving in game design, where you see one boy actually touching the screen while the other one is driving the mouse. So imagine if there were community-based youth makerspaces that popped up in all of our cities to say, hey, come in, play with materials, see how awesome it is. Instead of walking off the sidewalk into a shoe store, you can walk into a youth makerspace and co-invent the future shoe. When you're moving from concept to execution, you start to feel the intrinsic rewards of making your own unique creations, and then start thirsting to build more new things and learn more new skills. Very often we focus on educating kids, and of course we have to educate kids, but our goal can also be to inspire them to teach themselves. So the idea I want to leave you with today is, instead of saying, today we're going to learn about, what if the norm was redefined to asking, what will you make today? What would you be inspired to start learning in order to make what you imagine? Thank you.